Well, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Good to see all of you. It's good to see all of you back from vacation. Chris and Candace, it's nice of you to come back to our little corner of the world. May not be quite as interesting as what you left. Anyway, everybody's here except for Wallace, and I guess he's coming on in a little while. So all of you got your agenda?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda? Is anybody having problems with anything on it?
I motion. Oh, this is Jimmy. I make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Okay, do I have a second?
This is Timmy. I second.
Okay, any discussion? If not, make it known by raising your hand to approve the agenda. And everybody got a copy of the minutes from the July 18th meeting.
Yes.
And Tanya, thank you for doing those, getting all of that together. Does anybody have any additions or anything to the minutes? Chris.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Chris. Pleasure to be back with you. And when you're ready to open a school for the deaf on the Western Hebridean Islands of Scotland, let me know. I'm your man. And I will be happy to help establish that school. And yes, I think Dr. Tate is offering to join me. But it is wonderful to see you all. One quick thing with apologies, right hand, left hand in our office, we have not had a chance to review the changes to the admissions policy yet. I read in the minutes where you approved it on a first reading, and I just got back, obviously, in the country, and Dean did not have an opportunity. So that's why that is not, I believe, an action item. So not a problem with the minutes, but just a quick update because some of you may have been thinking about that. So I'm over the jet lag. Thank you for asking, Dr. Tate, but I need a little more time to review the admissions policy changes. So that was all.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
It's good to know. Timmy,
So,
think that's good to know.
They were passed on first reading, and since we had some legal questions, that's the only way we passed on, Chris, just so you know. So anyway, is there any other discussion of the minutes? If not, do I have a motion to approve? Mickey.
I move to accept the minutes.
Okay, do I have a second?
Jimmy here saying I second.
Okay, Jimmy, thank you. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of approving the minutes, just raise your hand. Oh, Wallace, were you voting or?
Voting.
Voting, okay. All right, thank you very much. Wallace, if you don't mind right here, I'm gonna let you maybe ask the same questions that you did about how our letterhead is set up. And maybe Tanya or Mark can address that a little bit so everybody's clear.
Sure, yeah. I guess it does pertain to the minutes. I didn't have any comments on the content of the minutes.
Yes, right.
But I did notice on the document itself, it was on DPI letterhead. And there's a footer at the bottom of the document that makes reference to, I don't have it in front of me, but I think it was Department of Deaf and Blind Education or Deaf and Blind Education Services, something along those lines. And so I was just asking a technical question around whether it should be on DPI letterhead, firstly, and secondly, just making sure I understood what that reference was in the footer.
Yes, Mark.
And Wallace, this is Mark, and you are correct. It states education services for the deaf and blind, which is what we used to be considered while we were under the Department of Public Instruction.
Okay.
And about 2 weeks ago, we updated our letterhead and removed that off the bottom. And then at the top, we removed Catherine Truitt's name as the superintendent of DPI. That way it is just NCSD letterhead.
Okay.
And so I'm sorry that that information did not get put onto that new template, but I know that Tanya will be able to change that in a hurry.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Chris, did you have any legal updates while you were in Scotland?
I tried to avoid legal updates while I was in Scotland. It was impossible to avoid what was happening at the national level in the United States of America during the month of July, but that's for sure. But it wasn't a bad time to be overseas with everything going on. But as far as legal updates, at this point, I think everyone knows that we're on hold with the General Assembly regarding any other changes, that the directors have been working directly with DPI on what DPI services are going to look like. And in fact, Mr. Patrick probably, I'm going to hand it off to him in just 2 seconds because I think he may have a thought or two of where that is and where he thinks that might be going. But DPI has said, all the folks at DPI, that they are not going to abandon the 3 schools, that they are here to provide the assistance that is needed until all 3 schools are ready to kind of stand on their own while the state is doing all of the changes to make you functionally an independent agency at that point. And based on what the directors and DPI decide, then the attorneys are going to work out an MOU, which will kind of sketch that out and talk about the roles and kind of define the roles. The last thing I'll say real quick before I turn it over to Mark for his thoughts is down the hall from me, starting his first day of work with Campbell Shatley Attorneys at Law, is one Brian Shaw, who is the attorney for the Eastern School for the Deaf. Brian has family in Valdez, and he is moving permanently to be with his extended family in Valdez, and has retired from the full-time practice of law and will be of counsel with our law firm and continuing to work with the Eastern School. So we're thrilled to have Brian right down the hall. And now when we need to talk about the schools, we'll just get in the conference room and talk about the 3 schools. So you will probably get to meet Brian. And if I'm unable to make a meeting, Dean is the attorney for the Governor Moorhead School. Brian is the attorney for the Eastern School. So we will all also be supporting each other. So it's entirely possible that some of you, especially Mr. Patrick, will from time to time deal with all 3 attorneys at different times on different issues. So we're thrilled to have Brian joining our firm.
That's great. That's great. That's really good for the 3 schools. So that's super.
It is, because now when there is an issue and there are already a couple on the plate, as I was reading through emails from Mark today trying to get caught up, when there are issues that are in common for all 3 schools, one of us will just deal with it for all 3 schools. So there's going to be a lot of economies of scale and a lot of savings and a lack of communication time that'll save all 3 schools money. We'll be able to take a single issue and divide it by 3, which will be nice.
Okay, that's great. Well, you did do some business while you were away.
Well, they did business while I was away, which is the way it should work when you're on vacation. Thank you for asking.
Okay. Mark, you want to, I have you down a little bit later on the agenda, but that's great. Just go ahead and jump in since Chris introduced that.
No problem. And this is Mark. And I will say that I have not been a part of any conversations except for one that we had on Monday, and where I have some summary statements in regards to that. But we continue to hear that exact same language, Chris, that DPI is not going away and that the departments will continue to support us. Then we also hear language that House Bill 11 says October the 1st. We got to get her done by October the 1st. So there's a little bit of banter going back and forth, and we're kind of just sitting back and watching it ride, and we'll see how it plays out. But that is something for our Board of Trustees to be cognizant of, is that there is additional conversation about the October 1 date. But so Sandy, do you want me to move on then? Is that good?
Well, do you have other things you want to add there at your new business? Or you can just wait till we get down there if you want to.
I'll just wait. That'll be fine.
Okay. Whatever you want to do is good. Okay. And I will say that the legislature seems to be aware of the 3 specialty schools dilemma with DPI. And I've been told that if we need any help with anything from DPI that is not coming, we just need to let Representative Blackwell know that that's the situation. Okay, committee updates. Wallace.
No new updates. We haven't had a meeting of the committee since the last board meeting for business and finance, but I do think it would make sense to call a committee meeting here in the coming weeks, just to make sure, especially since there's some delay in the legislation, that we've got a plan to meet some of the newer expenses associated with our new governance structure that are different from past budgets. So look for a meeting invite from me with some suggested dates here in the next day or two.
Okay, thank you, sir. Policies, Mickey.
We haven't done anything else since the last board meeting. We're anticipating the 4,000 policy series to be dropped for us soon. I've enjoyed the break from reading policies, so don't be in any hurry to drop some more. But no, nothing else to report from us right now.
There will be a policy meeting that'll need to be held, and Chris may want to add something on this, but we have a policy that we'll need to address as far as school contracts and that sort of thing. Chris, you want to talk about that just a little bit?
Yes, this is Chris, and this is a good time as any to talk about that. In just a few minutes, you are going to be asked to approve several MOUs, contracts, and agreements. And since you are now the governing authority for the school, the only legal entity is the Board of Trustees. So the school is not a legal entity separate from the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees is the legal entity. So just like school boards and community colleges, you will need to either do one of 2 things. Either approve every single contract, even if it's for $5, or delegate to your director the authority to approve certain contracts. And since we do not have a policy in place, this evening you are being asked to approve all of the MOUs and all of the contracts. I am going to make some proposals to the policy committee to go ahead and expedite a contracting authority policy that would give Mr. Patrick the ability to approve certain contracts up to a certain dollar amount. And the preconditions would be that there has to be a budget line item for the particular contract or service, and there must be an unencumbered amount in the budget for that particular item, and then you will set a threshold. And I will tell you, the committee will work through it, but the threshold that has already been set by the Eastern School for their director is up to $100,000. And Mr. Patrick and I had a brief conversation about this, and don't mind telling you, we both support the $100,000 mark, that seems to be a reasonable amount, that anything over $100,000 would need to come to the full board for approval, but anything in the budget for which there are funds, that up to $100,000 would be approved by the director. The only other issue is there are zero sum or no dollar contracts and agreements. There are a lot of collaborative agreements and other things that don't require the school to spend money. So the policy committee and Mr. Patrick will be working on, since you're new, since everybody's getting up to speed, how should that work? Should Mr. Patrick give advance notice or give notice after the fact of certain $0 contracts to you as a board? When do you want to be notified of those $0 agreements, and how do you want to be notified of that? But certainly, most institutions give the authority to the director to enter into no dollar contracts. The only question is, and some of this is case by case, is sometimes either the board wants to be heard before a no dollar contract is entered into. And sometimes, of course, the director would like to bring it to you because he's unsure if you as a full board even support what this no zero or no dollar contract would involve. So those, we don't need to discuss that right now. That's why you have a policy committee. So your policy committee and Mr. Patrick will be discussing those issues. So at your next board meeting, you can anticipate a recommendation for a final policy on contract authority so that we don't have to approve every single contract at meetings.
Okay, thank you.
This is Tiffany. We'll need to do an interpreter switch.
Okay.
We're all good. All good. Thank you.
Ready? Okay. All right. And
And Candace, Candace is making a comment.
Dr. Tate, I just wanted to say that Wallace has his hand up.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wallace. And thank you, Candace.
I just had a question on the last point that Chris was making. And just curious, I think it makes total sense to have some delegation of contracting authority to the director. I was just curious if there's any sort of reporting so that the board be made aware of, hey, these are the contracts that were entered into in a time interval.
Chris.
So this is Chris, and yes, that will be one of, thank you, Wallace, that will be one of the issues that the policy committee talks about and puts in there, is what is that reporting mechanism? Because even if the director has complete authority, there is always a reporting mechanism so that the board is aware of all those contracts. So thank you. Yes, we'll hit that as well.
Okay. Is that good? Okay. Dr. Tate, Human Resources.
And this is Dr. Tate. We have not met since the last board meeting, so there is no update. I will be requesting that we have an HR committee meeting in the very near future. So I'll be sending out updates with Tanya invite with Tanya to the HR committee to discuss personnel and ongoing topics within that umbrella.
Okay. Thank you. And marketing committee, we still are, I'm still working on that committee. I feel like right now we've got a pretty full plate, and we'll get that marketing working just as soon as possible. Okay. Speaking of contracts and MOUs, sorry, Mark. Mark,
And this is Mark. And Sandy, I just wanted you to know I have not sent those proposed names to you for parents or marketing as of yet, because I'm waiting for staff members to return. And
Okay.
if I can collect some excitement in some staff members who may want to participate, and that the staff return on the 8th. And then the parents, I've got multiple parents picked out for in my mind, and I will try to catch those in person on orientation day on Sunday 18th to see if I can have some nice face-to-face conversations with some parents, because not only do we need marketing committee parents, but we've got to garner some that are those that are interested in our school improvement team, because those will switch, as well as the CTE advisory council. So we have to have parents on all of those.
well, I gave Tanya a tentative list of the parent plan committee this week. So she has a list of parents that was given to me. So look those over and see, they may be the same. Okay.
And if I have not seen the list, if I have others that I feel would be good after conversations, do you still want those per your request or not?
Yes, yes. Because none of our committees really that are coming up are set in stone, but we can look at all of those. We don't know the parents, so any input we get is welcome. And Tammy is heading that up, so she'll also need contact info. Okay.
And
Back to,
that is true, Sandy.
okay,
Amy, that's true.
Jimmy.
Yeah, so I've got a question related with parents being involved with marketing. So I'm just wondering, do we still have the PSO? Do we have that organization, or has that gone by the wayside? I'm just wondering how that would work. You know, if we don't have an organization for parents. So if we've got that one-on-one contact, is that how that's going to work?
Mark.
Yeah, I guess this is to you, Mark. This is Jimmy.
And Jimmy, this is Mark. And the PSO has not been operational for 10 years at best. Dr. Garvin gave it her all to try to garner interest in that, and had meetings at bus stops, had meetings at homecoming, home basketball games, etc., and could never get any interest. Our local parents have grown. However, we've got 21 families that live locally, or at least within an hour. And so that's nice. And they also are parents of specifically elementary students. And elementary parents are a little bit easier to pull into some of those roles and to have that feeling of participation. So that's kind of where I'm going to try to focus with our parents. My experience as a principal has always been to work as close as you can with your elementary parents, because they want to be involved. You begin to lose parents in middle school and really lose them in high school. So
Okay. Back to our MOUs and contracts. There is quite a list to go through today. And what we're going to do is take that list, and Mark, are you going to be the one to give us a description of each of those?
And this is Mark. Yes.
Okay. Our first one is facility use request and rental application.
And this is Sandy, this is Chris. Do you
Yes,
want
Chris.
me Do you want me to set the stage for how we're going to deal with all of these before Mark goes through each one?
Yes,
So, okay.
please do.
So I will tell you that while I was gone and the good folks in my office, Mark and the attorneys have completed reviews of several of these agreements, but not all of them. All of them are either completed as far as legal review or in the final stages of legal review. So that you don't have to though come back and review them or approve them later. You can approve all of these agreements subject to final legal review. So our recommendation is let Mr. Patrick go through all of these just so that you understand what they are, answer all of your questions. And then if you're comfortable with all of them and the reason for all of them, you could actually take it, Madam Chair, as a single vote subject to final legal review. And we'll do our final legal review on all 9.
Okay. If the board's agreeable, we'll do that. We'll listen to Mark's explanation, and then when he's finished with the 9 items, we will just do a vote subject to the final legal review. I don't think there's but maybe 3 or 4 of them that haven't been totally vetted. So, Mark, faculty use request and rental.
Yeah, and this is Mark. And the facility use request and rental application is a form that was approved by the Department of Public Instruction's legal department that we use when we are doing facility rental opportunities. That is a revenue generator. And so when we rent to Greenway, when we rent to Viper, when we rent out the gyms, the scout cabin, etc., these are all opportunities to be able to generate some funds. And so this is the form that we use with the expectations laid out to be able to do that.
Okay. And Clean Harbors.
Clean Harbors is a company in which we need to be able to contract or have the terms and conditions approved to be able to sanitize the diesel fuel tank, because it has been recognized that there is mold that is growing in the fuel tank, and we cannot have that. So Clean Harbors is the maintenance that we use. They have updated some terms and conditions, and so those need to run through legal so that we can move forward with ensuring that the tank meets compliance.
Okay. Let me ask Chris a question here, and this may not be a question anybody else has even thought of, but a lot of these I noticed had NCDPI approval. Chris, going forward, will we continue to have everything approved by DPI, or will the board approve it and that will be enough? How will that work?
Right, so the legal approval as of August 1 is this board and us as your attorneys. We're the final say on anything. But I saw some discussion in the emails. One of the things I need to go back and read, I know that Mark and I were included after the fact on some of these discussions. From what the email says, the DPI was going to continue to review certain things on the front end. And that's great. I mean, the more they can look at something on the front end, hopefully that'll save us time looking at it. But the direct answer to your question is that this board is the final decision maker on all agreements. And I think Mark has something to add to that.
Yes, Mark.
And this is Mark. And yes, Chris, they, as of right now, they are still going to be approving and running e-procurement contracts through e-procurement legal, because they are having to continue to operate on approving e-procurement for us. So that is the reason that those contracts are running in that way, because they're not going to approve it unless they approve it. So, but as you stated, it still has to come to you and then back to the board, because they have the final approval. But That's what we've got to do for the majority of IT and anything over the 30,000, 50,000, or 100,000 thresholds that require e-procurement.
Okay, does everybody understand when Mark says e-procurement? Everybody got that? Mark?
And this is Mark. And what I can say for in regards to e-procurement is following, because we are a state agency, we are obligated to follow the Office of State Business Management rules and policies. And so there are specific policies that mandate that we go through the state ordering process, and that's e-procurement. So we have to order anything that's off of the state list before we are allowed to move forward in another manner. So that's what the e-procurement stands for, is following the rules and regulations and policies that are set forth by the Office of State Business Management.
Okay,
And interpreter switch, please.
yes.
Then ready? And Mrs. Mark, the next contract is our Reading A to Z. This is an amazing curriculum.
Wait a minute. Okay, yes, go ahead, Mark, I'm sorry.
Yes, that is used and is used widely, not only at NCSD, but nationally at schools for the deaf. And it has great student outcomes. And the reason why that we have to do this is because it must run through DIT, because this curriculum has an online component that must be approved through the Department of Information. It's not incredibly expensive, but the terms and conditions must be approved through DIT, then through e-procurement, then sent back to us for our legal review, and then to you. So it's quite a lengthy process to be able to get this done. And A to Z has been a labor of love that has been about a year long, because they were not satisfying the terms and conditions for DIT. And we were not going to be able to utilize this incredibly beneficial curriculum. But finally, Dr. McManus was able to get a hold of the right person that strong-armed their legal department into making the required modifications for us to be able to move forward.
Okay, and our next one is the ASU Beginning Teacher Support Program.
Yeah, and this is Mark, and the Appalachian State University New Teacher Support Program is a very valuable program that we use as a partnership that offers weekly mentorship to all of our teachers that are beginning teacher 1, beginning teacher 2, and beginning teacher 3. Now that beginning teacher, that BT 1, 2, and 3 means it's their first year, their second year, and their third year. And there are specific State Board of Ed policies that we have to follow for beginning teachers. And this is an additional support that we follow in addition to our beginning teacher support plan that has to be approved by the Department of Public Instruction for all entities. So they also provide not only weekly mentorship with our teachers, but also provide 3 professional development opportunities where ASU comes to NCSD and will provide either skilled PD for a specific group of teachers or for all staff, which is incredibly beneficial for us. And then tertiary to that, they allow mini grant opportunities. And we've had 6 teachers that have received about $12,000 through mini grants that they are applying for through the advocacy with their mentor. So it's a wonderful program.
Okay, our next one is Equalize.
And this is Mark. And Equalize is the contract that we use for our 2 students who receive visual impairment specially designed instruction. We do not have a teacher that is VI certified. Therefore, we are obligated to contract out. And Kim's company there's only 2 companies in the state that offer VI services. So we are fortunate that that teacher has to come once a week to be able to meet both of those students to satisfy their IEP goals and specially designed instruction. And then if there is a request for a functional vision assessment, an FVI, then Equalize can produce those assessments and formal assessments for us for IEP usage.
Okay. And Morganton Youth Robotics.
Yes. And this contract actually has 2 purposes. The Morganton Youth Robotics is a robotics club that meets locally on the 3rd floor of Hoffmeyer, and has students from NCSSM as well as other schools locally that come and participate in robotics competitions. And it's a really high level group of students that come and build these phenomenal robots. And so they rent 3 rooms on the 3rd floor of Hoffmeyer and leave all of their stuff there, and have been excellent renters. So we appreciate the $300 a month that drops into the bank account, and for them to be able to do that. And now,
Let me ask a question. Are any of our students allowed to join this club?
yes, this is Mark. Yes, they are welcomed every year. Last year, that several of our students did participate, but actually were not able to fully comprehend and understand the level in which that they were doing with the robots. And so they decided to go ahead and drop out of that. But Mike has already reached out and said, hey, we want to meet your new upcoming robotics club students this year to be able to see. So yes.
Do we have prospective students that are going to do that? The only reason I'm asking, robotics is big at NCSD. And this sounds like a wonderful opportunity for our kids.
Yes, and this is Mark. And as soon as the clubs are established, after the first couple weeks of school, then we will get them connected with Mike. And then we have chosen our 3 coaches as well. So we're excited about that.
Okay. And number 7 is the PCG Medicaid agreement.
Let me go back to.
Hold on. Just a second. Tammy's got a question. Tammy.
Yeah, this is Tammy here. I'm wondering, are they going to be using an interpreter for those club meetings? And is there going to be a cost generated with that as well, since it's a mix of hearing and deaf students for that club? Would an interpreter be provided for that?
Mark.
And this is Mark. Tammy, yes, the club sponsors, the teachers and teacher assistants, they go and support the students. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then to go back to the memorandum of understanding for NCS.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Jimmy's got a question now.
Yeah, this is Jimmy.
I'm sorry, Jimmy. I missed you.
Oh, that's okay. I have a question about, I guess, regarding, what we're talking about. So I was looking over something I saw in the newspaper, and it was talking about NCSSM's involvement with the decathlon. Yes, in different robotic uh, things, but it didn't seem like our students were really involved with any of that. So I'm wondering if
It's the clock tower.
the,
Clock tower. So just wondering why our students maybe are not involved in that, especially with the clock tower.
And Jimmy, this is Mark. And yes, that level of coding that was used for the programming of the clock in the clock tower was above our current level of skills for our students. That is at a collegiate level. And so that's the reason why that our students were not involved in that.
Okay, other questions? Maybe that can be a goal for us, is to get our students involved at that level.
Indeed. And this is Mark and Kevin Baxter, who is the vice chancellor at the North Carolina School of Science and Math. He and I talk on a weekly basis about opportunities for cross inclusion for our students. And so every opportunity that we have to get NCSSM students on NCSD's campus, we do it, and vice versa, where we can get our students over there.
Okay, you wanted to go back to something.
Yes. So the MOU that we have for the Morganton Youth Robotics is a template that we use for all of our rental agreements. And we would like for the Board of Trustees to consider approving this template so that we can continue to use this on an ongoing basis and just fill in the blanks for whoever we're writing an MOU with. This template.
You're talking about this one, right?
No, that's completely different. So we can have a rental agreement, but we also have to have memorandums of understanding for that, for safety precautions, liability, legal issues, etc. And so what we do is we take this template that we have that's been approved by DPI legal, and we just fill in the blanks and send it on. And then, like Morganton Youth Robotics, their legal is responsible for agreeing to the terms. And so this has been sent, and Miss Ashley did a beautiful job with adding some additional language to ensure safety and compliance. And so we would like for the board to consider approving this template and then us just running with the approved template.
And did we get a copy of that template?
What you're seeing with Morganton Youth Robotics, we sent this as an example because it has all the new legal language that's pointed out in it. And so you would just take Morganton Youth Robotics off of it and add whatever other entity would be there and just fill in the blanks.
Okay.
Yes. So we definitely would like to. Yes, Chris.
So this is Chris. That has been reviewed by my office, and I see no reason, if the board is comfortable, you don't have to, but if you're comfortable this evening, that has been fully reviewed. So you could vote on the agreements and vote to approve the template this evening.
Okay. Has everybody seen that in Google Drive? And everybody reviewed that with the Morganton Robotics?
And this is Chris, not rushing anybody. If you want to wait and approve the template at the next meeting, that's fine. But it is fairly straightforward, and we did review it.
This is Tammy. I've had so many things coming at me trying to keep up with everything. I don't think I've seen that yet, but maybe if we could just briefly share it with a screen share, that might be the fastest way to do it for right now if we want to look at approving it tonight.
And this is Chris. It's fairly lengthy. I don't think that It's
Mm.
like 4 pages. And the other thing you could do is delegate the
Huh.
authority to finalize the template to your director. And then if any of you have thoughts or comments, you can let Mr. Patrick know. But this is operational in nature, and it has been reviewed by legal counsel. So again, I'm not trying to rush you, but this is one that I'm comfortable if you wanted to delegate it to your director and let him know if you've got thoughts on it, because it kind of is an administrative document in most institutions that the administration revises over time. But I know this is the first time you've dealt with it.
Yeah. Yes, Wallace.
Hi, this is Wallace. Thank you. I just wanted to make the comment related to this template that we've been discussing. I'm looking at it now, the robotics one as the example. And I agree with Tammy. I'd probably prefer to just make sure I've read through it before I vote on it. But one thing I would just observe is that I'm seeing a red line document. It's not clear to me. I like your idea, Mark, of like, it's just sort of fill in these blanks, but it's not clear to me where the blanks would be reading the completed document. So that if there's a way to, if I'm looking at the right document, to just know where the blanks would be and where the boilerplate language would be.
Yes. And Wallace, this is Mark. And yes, it would just be we can do that. I can have Tanya go through and accept. I actually left it purposefully so that you could see what had been added to it. But I can have her accept all of those recommendations from Ashley's document, and then we can upload that into the drive with the areas in which would be filled in upon each one. But it would be dates, how much that, and when it's due is pretty much about the only thing that we have to fill in on it. And their requirements they have to have liability insurance.
Well, let's,
Tiffany, we'll need to do an interpreter switch.
okay.
Ready? We're
Okay.
ready.
I suggest, just for clarity and because our board is new at this kind of thing, and I hate to take undue time and that kind of thing, but maybe we do need a blank document for our board members to see, be able to read through, understand, and because once we've approved it, you can use it over and over and over. Okay.
All right. And then the next thing,
What, comment from Jimmy?
Jimmy.
I did read through 3 or 4 different MOUs. I looked at all that paperwork. So I'm just wondering, with any other, is there an MOU with the School of Math and Science with using our buildings? Was there anything set up previously that we have not seen?
and Jimmy, this is Mark. Yes, there is an MOU with the NCSSM, and it's a 5-year MOU. And we submitted that a couple months ago in the Google Drive for everybody to be able to review all of our current MOUs that way. And then if and at the last meeting, which I believe that I don't remember if you were present or not, we talked about the possibility of oh no, it was in a committee meeting. I'm sorry. We talked about the possibility of needing to revisit that MOU for possible changes and recommendations, but we have not come back together to look at that yet.
This is Sandy. I know, Tammy, hold on just a second. Suggestion. And I know what everybody's talking about. We have been bombarded with not only emails, but drops into Google Drive. And Google Drive, if you don't catch it immediately, you get lost in the process because it just goes on and on and on. We've talked about trying to find a better process for getting these documents other than just dumping them in Google Drive. I really think that when we have to approve something or look at something, with the board being responsible, we need a better and clearer method and way of getting these documents, because it's hard to keep up with everything that comes in. And just like you said, okay, you dropped this one several months ago. Well, if you missed it several months ago, you don't know to go back and pick it up. So I think we can do a better process here with our board members getting these documents. We're not that big, and so I think that's something we really need to address and look at. Tammy?
Yeah, this is Tammy. Yeah, so Mark, what committee is will look at the MOU with NCSSM? I'm just wondering which committee that's going to be.
Business and Finance.
Oh, I see. Business and Finance. Okay, thank you.
And this is Mark. And if there is recommendations, I know that each time we have to put something in, Tanya tries to email everybody and make sure that they've got a link that goes with each time that something goes in. It's certainly overwhelming for everybody, but if anybody has any recommendations for Tanya of how that communication structure can be improved, just please let her know. All right, so I'm going to get back to these. And the PCG contract is our Medicaid contract. And this too has been quite the labor of love. It was finally approved back in May, but it was only written through June the 30th.
And yay for that, Mark. This is Tammy.
Tammy, you are right. You are right. Yay, definitely yay. It's been about 22 months that we as school directors worked tirelessly to try to get this up and running. So we currently do not have a contract. It'll be very important for the board to consider the approval of this contract, so I can email it back to PCG tomorrow so that we could begin setting up some training opportunities for professional service staff and business staff who will be utilizing the opportunity to bill Medicaid.
Okay, you said, this is Sandy. You said it went through June 30th. So this is a new agreement?
And this is Mark. Yes, it is a new agreement.
Okay.
And it is with Ashley, and I know that she is reviewing that along with a gazillion other things, and she will submit that to us just as quickly as possible. And then the next is pretty important for us to consider, because it's bimodal in nature, in that the bring your own device, the Department of Information Technology, DIT, has sent down a request that all state agency staff members must sign a policy if their email or state agency work is being done on their personal cell phones. And so there are criteria that have to be met to where staff members then, if they meet the 4 points of criteria, must be given a state cell phone. And so everybody on NCSD's campus, except for 2 people, already have state phones. And so they're good. But having those state phones also require a policy. And so we have to have an agreement, but then, Mickey, we're also going to have a policy that if for some reason they do not follow the agreement, then policy would come into play. So what was sent to you all is DIT's policy that was sent to DPI that DPI then accepted. So it would be very easy for our attorneys to be able to review this, and if agreed upon the terms and conditions, then would be able to move forward with that. But we would need to approve the agreement, and we would have to generate the policy to be able to ensure that we are compliant with DIT. And we just got this just a couple days ago, so this was hot when it went into the Google Drive for everybody.
You said everybody has a state phone except for 2 employees?
And this is Mark. No, those that meet the criteria, all of those but 2 have a state phone. And so Aaron already has those phones. And in fact, it's me and Aaron who do not have state phones. We will have to have phones deployed to us because of the criteria. Nobody else on campus meets the criteria, so they do not need to have them.
So only 2 of you will have phones? I don't understand what you're saying there.
No. We have 15 maintenance men that already have phones.
Okay,
We have 8 environmental service staff that already have phones.
okay,
We have an interpreter with a phone. Student Health Center has a phone. The principal has a phone. Residential life director / residential life coordinators have a phone. And our safety officer has a phone. So that's everybody. So anybody that would have a purpose or reason to have to be called back to school for an emergency. And so everybody that has a phone already, they already have them. And we just got to get this policy, this agreement in place and policy in place so that we satisfy the requirements with DIT. And then Aaron and I are going to have phones deployed to us because of that. And then if a staff member makes the decision to have their state email on their personal cell phone, then they would have to sign the agreement and follow the policy. That's the requirement from DIT. So, and this is also sitting with Ashley. It certainly has already been legally vetted, but it's sitting with her and she will let us know. And then Mickey, Aaron, and I plan to draft a draft policy to submit to you that will cover those requirements. And then finally, our last contract is our Brightly contract. And Brightly is the software that we use for our work order system. And Jimmy, I know you use the work order system quite often, but the work order system is crucial to day-to-day operations for all of the departments to be able to do that. And this too has been a labor of love. It's took 11 months for Dr. McManus to get this approved. And so we want to jump on this one, but this one is also sitting with Ashley. And as soon as she has the opportunity to approve it, then we'll send that up. But those are all of the contracts that we've received over the last really 3 weeks that we need to consider. And then at each meeting, we probably need to have a standing agenda item for contracts and MOUs. That way I can bring to you after the board makes a decision upon spending threshold authority. That then each month we can talk about the MOUs that we have done and ones that we need approval for. And that's done for me.
okay,
Interpreter switch, please.
yes. Ready?
Okay. Ready?
Okay. Now, Chris, you want me to ask for a vote? Can we say also on the template, can we hold that one or include it in the group?
Sure, this is Chris. I think the thing to do is, again, if the board's comfortable, is go ahead and just do a single motion to approve all of the MOUs, contracts, and agreements as presented, subject to final legal review. And then Mark can bring a template back to the board at a future meeting. But this would mean that you are approving the agreement for the robotics team to go ahead and use. Because I assume, Mark, that that is something that they're doing now. And putting that off is probably not a great idea. Let's approve that one, and we can approve the template at a future meeting. So we don't need to mention the template at all in the motion.
Could you have that template possibly by our August 15th meeting, Mark?
And this is Mark, and absolutely, sure.
Okay, all right. So we will be approving the group. The motion will be for the entire 9 MOUs that are before you. So do I have a motion? Wallace?
So moved. This is Wallace.
And if we can just add to the motion, subject to final legal review.
I was getting there, Chris.
Great.
And this will be, yes, approval subject to final legal review.
I'll revise my motion
Okay,
accordingly.
okay. Do I have a second?
This
Jimmy?
is Jimmy.
Okay.
It's a
Any
good-
further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, so that took care of those. We will be going to closed session tonight for personnel contracts. Chris, do we have a timeline looking, not to rush your office, Lord, you're covered up probably. For the 4,000s, you have a timeline anytime?
I do not, this is Chris. I do not yet. If y'all will give me a little time to dig back out from being gone, I really want to make these final contract approvals the priority with Mark. Make sure, because I know that not only Ashley, but Anna, there are a couple of attorneys in our office that are looking at these. So I want to kind of make that my priority. And this is legal update season, where just about every day for the next week and a half, I'm in a different county doing legal updates for school folks. So let me get my head on straight, and I'll be in touch with Nikki and you, Ms. Turner, on a proposed date for the 4,000 series.
Okay.
And everyone, I know you know this, but just to recap for the public members listening, you have adopted all previously existing policies and procedures of the school unless they conflict with law. So this is not a problem for Mr. Patrick and his staff that we haven't looked at the 4,000 series. They're just going to continue to follow the law and student matters until you get those policies finalized.
Okay. So I am asking the board for permission to establish 2 ad hoc committees. One will be for curriculum and one will be for the parental plan that we are being asked to develop with the Parents' Bill of Rights. So any questions or discussion about those? And we already have chairs and co-chairs in place for those. Thank you all very much.
Sandy, this is Mark. Chris, do you know if the State Board of Ed has approved or sent out a parental template? I was completely unaware that we were even supposed to have that. And so we have a Parents' Bill of Rights template that is done. That's already been approved and vetted through DPI Legal and is posted on our website. But to satisfy this policy, do you know if DPI has sent out a template to other superintendents?
Right. So this is Chris. So there are two separate issues, and the first is the student guide to success. The parent student guide. That's what DPI sent out a template.
Right.
Is that, Mr. Patrick, is that what's been done and posted already? That particular one.
And this is Mark. Yes, sir. It is completed and posted on the website.
Great. So the second issue is, yes, technically you are supposed to have a parental involvement policy, and the state did not do a template, but the School Boards Association did.
Okay.
And the policy that y'all are looking at right now in the 1000 series is that policy.
Okay.
And I don't mind telling you, you are already supposed to have approved it and have it in place, but my goodness, it is August 1st, and you just became the authority for the school. And I think if anybody will cut you a little slack on getting your policies in place, I would hope it would be the General Assembly, understanding that you were just created and there was a lot of uncertainty as to what you were going to look like. There continues to be uncertainty to some degree. So yes, we do kind of need to expedite that policy to the degree we can, but I don't feel a need to rush it. I'll have some conversation with Mr. Patrick. The policy manual allows you to do interim policies. So if we feel like we have to, we might do a scaled down interim policy while y'all were thinking about some bigger picture issues. So that's a long-winded way of saying what you're working on now will satisfy that, and it is supposed to be in place, but there's only so much y'all can do, and you've already taken on a lot. So we'll work with you on it.
And I want to compliment the board members who are working on all these committees, because everybody's just been really great about going, yes, I will work on that. So, and Tammy, Chris does have some points that he's going to send you so that you don't have to spin your wheels on this. You'll know what you need to do. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you for undertaking this. Okay. Old business that we have postponed.
Tammy, this is Tammy. I did just want to go back. Mark, did you see that email in with that list of the parents participation plan? Also, I want to hear from Chris. If you could just keep us updated about that. I wanted to look and see who exactly those parents are, just, you know, who we have kind of in mind. And then just before we go ahead and set up that meeting, I just wanted to let you know.
And their emails and those
their emails.
Okay, Mark.
Lord. And Tammy, this is Mark. I'll try to, how do I set up a call with you and kind of discuss the parents? Again, I have not seen the parents' names that were submitted on because I was going to submit those. And so and I will collect that list on orientation day. And then I'll set up a call with you. That way you and I can chat about those. Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you.
And Mark, Tanya has that list. Okay. Now we do need to, I'm sorry, I need to go back and approve the curriculum and parental committees. So do I have a motion that we can set these up? Mickey?
I move that we accept the curriculum committee and the parental plan involvement committee as stated on the agenda.
Okay. Is there a second?
This is Tammy. I second.
Thank you. And any discussion on those two committees? If not, I will explain a little bit to the board. As as committees are appointed or set up, I try my best to not only talk to the folks who are going to head up those committees, but I also try to talk to the people that will be involved in those committees and see if we've got a commitment before I bring them in to you. The only thing about the parental plan committees is we've not been able to reach out to any parents because we have no contact info for them. So yeah, Tammy, just go ahead and work with Mark and get that set and ready to go. All in favor of the two committees being set up, raise your hand. Okay. Okay, now, back to old business. The HR office, Mark, have you come up with a place for that?
And this is Mark. And we have not come up with a place for the HR office. I had a conversation with Leslie yesterday, and she is struggling with the recommendation to move the office because the office that they currently have is 1,850 square feet. And the other couple areas in which that they are moving are considering don't have even close to that. And there is also a struggle in which what rooms would be considered secure files and what rooms would be considered conference. And she is also talking about potentially having to inquire about adding a third staff member to human resources as well because of and we'll talk about that in a minute, because of some of the new requirements that are coming down. And she is fearful that it may impact their ability to do business. And then my concern is that a couple of the areas that were recommended were are student facing and clinician facing, and it's tough to make a recommendation that will impact students and staff. So that's my update on that HR discussion.
Okay, why don't we assign this over to HR committee? And Dr. Tate, when your committee meets, there can be a further discussion amongst the committee members as to requirements for where the office should be and how we can accommodate that if possible. Okay, and for the board's update, I had requested of Mark that the board members get a digital access card for at least main building and UI. And he asked me to put this off until the August 1st meeting. So, Mark.
And this is Mark. And yes, and I have spoken with Aaron and Randy, and they have got those DAC cards, and they will set those up for those that request it. The only thing that we have to do is we'll have to have signatures for those cards, and then secondary to that, it will be essential that board members communicate with our office when you are planning to come, to ensure that when you come into main building that you would sign in because of our safety protocols that are in place.
Chris.
And this is Chris, and this is a great opportunity to revisit Boardsmanship 101 and kind of best practices. As I like to say to all board members of all institutions, just by being a board member, you are a disruptive force in the building. And that just comes with the job. Anytime a board member shows up, it makes people do a couple things. One, they wonder why you're there sometimes. But two, they will stop what they're doing to greet you, to talk to you. They're glad to see you and all of those things. So just kind of keep in the back of your mind, Mark is exactly right. There's two reasons to give that heads up to the principal, to the director that you're coming. One is just safety and follow the safety protocols. But second is You would hate, for example, to show up on a day where there was serious testing or assessments and find out that by, walking into the building and walking down the hall, you kind of created a disruption where if you had known that there were testing or assessments or things going on, you might have put off your visit. So I'm obviously not talking about events you've been invited to or the cafeteria, things like that, but just, again, boardsmanship, just keep in the back of your mind that you are somewhat of a disruptive force with a little d when you come to visit. So it's always best to give principal director a heads up that you're going to be there.
Okay. Any
Interpreter
comments?
switch.
Okay. Wait, Mark, they're going to switch interpreters.
All good.
Okay, Mark.
And this is Mark. And if those of you that are interested in having a DAC card assigned to you, if you will simply email Tanya that request, then I will send that through the work order system for approval.
Okay. Is there any of the board members that do not want one of those DAC cards? Looks like everybody wants one, Mark.
Okay, and this is Mark, and Tanya will write that down for me to do.
Okay. And I did not mention this at the beginning of the meeting, but let me give this to you. Ray had a conflict this evening. He is doing well. He and I had a very nice conversation yesterday, and he apologizes for missing this meeting. So, and he will probably also would like to have a DAC card, Mark. Okay. New business from school director, anything we need to be updated on? And one thing I would like to know is how many students have we got enrolled this year?
And this is Mark, and we won't have that number until orientation day, but we had 8 graduate, and we've got 4 coming in, and there are 6 with interest. So it will be between 65 and 75 for year 12.
So how many are committed right now to come?
Well, again, no, we never know until they show up, but we should have 62 if all previous students from last year come, plus 4, so that would be potentially 66.
Okay. All right.
All right. So for some updates from the Department of Public Instruction, again, as I shared earlier, I am typically not a part of the majority of the discussions that are occurring, but we did have a follow-up meeting on Monday where they have approved the separation of the new email addresses, which has given Aaron and Eric a tremendous amount of work to do. So that is a huge plus and positive. That there were significant struggles with DIT and Microsoft with getting those set up, and it took about 9 months probably from beginning to end to get those new tenants set up. So our new emails are up and running, and of course everybody will begin to use those, and those will phase in gradually. But our other emails, our ESDB email, will be forwarded for 1 year, which is great. And then the Infinite Campus is replacing PowerSchool. And that has been a journey as well, because all new software comes with its own transitional struggles. And those have not been fully released on out to the schools as of yet. In an email that I saw today says that they hope that those will be released on Friday, tomorrow, but there was no guarantee. And then along with that, then comes the separation of ECATS, which is the special education software that we use for IEPs, as well as the CCIP grant system. All of that stuff is having to go from one entity of 298 has been broken up into 3 entities of 296 is Eastern, 297 is in CSD, and then 298 is remaining GMS. That will cause a disaster for us for this entire year, because they should have sunsetted 298. But now everything that GMS is going to be getting is going to be all of our historical data that I no longer have access to. So if they would have separated it into 3 new entities, then the old 298 would have been sunsetted and everybody would have had new information. So Melvin and I have talked exclusively about weekly. We're going to have to meet to see what he has that we need, etc. So it's going to be a significant journey working through those processes. And Chris, I love to see you shaking your head, because we advocated so hard for that not to continue, and we lost that battle, and we will pay the price, but it's okay. I guess we'll just work through it. And then we have ongoing human resources needs that they are continuing to approve the positions, reallocations, job postings, all that kind of stuff. They're following OSHR regulations in doing so. So that's working out fine. There are some questions, because since Senate Bill 90 did not pass, then we are following, of course, HB 11, which states that all new employees are coming in as classified at will 115C employees. But that hasn't been decided as of what does that look like, because we are having to enter them into the OSHR system, which has all of their rights. I had a lovely conversation with Dean, and he gave me a phrase to give to Leslie and Susie for them to ensure that they are using, to ensure that new staff members know and understand that what that implication means, that as they are being hired, they are not being hired as a GS 126 staff person, but they are being hired as a 115C classified at-will employee. So he gave us that language that we needed. We're going to move forward with that until we're told otherwise. And then DPI processes continuing on, especially with e-procurement, as we've already discussed, budget as IT, and as well as human resources. But they are going to begin, this is my quote, they are advocating for a gradual release of duties to staff members. So we're going to have to, we operationally will work diligently with that, but we also, as an entity, have to ensure that we have capacity to encompass that. You all did improve the new business staff which will be great, especially with the approval of the PCG contract. That will practically be a full-time job for a business staff person, with just doing the Medicaid billing and money coming in and out with that. And then Leslie and Susie and I are having conversations to see what capacity is going to look like for human resources. And then Aaron and I are also having conversations about what capacity is going to look like for IT. Those are the three departments that will be impacted with the release of information, release of duties coming back to our staff members. And then finally, with the migration of GS 126 employees to 115C, as I said a minute ago, we are trying to begin to work with OSHR as to what does that look like. And because really and truly, a 115C employee really shouldn't be in the NC VIP evaluation system, because that is specifically built for GS 126 staff. We have come to the agreement that they are going to go in there until OSHR says they have to come out. But we are not set up to operate under a tertiary evaluation system at this time. And so we're going to leave it like it is. We're going to push things through and advocate for that. But if we do receive word from OSHR that will have to change, then an evaluation system will have to come to the board for approval for us to be able to use for 115C classified staff. And I'll keep the HR committee updated on that stuff as it's running in. But again, we're not a part of those discussions. There was even a question as to the new employees, the 7 that we approved, if they will even receive state allocations of funds. That email I shared with Chris today, and it appears that they do believe they will, because they are still state employees, but they just are following under different policies. So that's great news. That's great news, and that's exactly what we want, which will mean that they can stay within the NCVIP evaluation system as well, because they must be paid from OSC, the Office of State Controller's Office. They must be paid through Fiore. So it would become incredibly complex with the interpretation of the language. So that's what I got from Monday. I have no answers. We have lots of questions, but we're just going to keep trucking. Any questions from any of you?
I do. Did the transition just end on July 1st? Was there any finalization of that? Was there any discussion about that? I mean, did it just end for DPI?
And Tammy said, that's a challenge.
And this is Mark, and I have not been privy to any conversation. I have no answer for that. I know that we are continuing to work diligently with our contacts at DPI, and we have amazing contacts at DPI, and they're making sure that things are running. But our contacts are not at the upper the director level, so even our contacts are not a part of many of the discussions. Chris?
And this is Chris, and from the attorney level, again, this is what relates back to that MOU. So the good news, Ms. Turner and board members, is that the intent from the attorneys, including Tim Hogemeyer, who is the attorney for DPI that's heading this up, is that what is needed from the schools and how that will continue to operate would be in an MOU that will be finalized. Tim is heading that up as the sheep herder, if you will, for DPI and all the different divisions and folks at DPI. And one of the things that Brian and Dean and I are going to talk about in the conference room tomorrow here at our office is one of us being Tim's primary contact for all three schools and all three directors. So we're looking to streamline this so that if any of the three directors have a concern, they have one attorney at our office to call about that as far as DPI assistance, and we have one attorney who's talking to the DPI attorney. So we're doing everything we can, Ms. Turner, board members, to streamline the process and give Mark and Melvin and Hannah somebody that they can contact, one attorney, with their concerns as we move forward. So things are happening. It's just vacation time, and DPI said that. They had a lot of key folks that were on vacation the last number of weeks as well.
Interpreter switch, please.
Okay. Mickey, you have a question?
Yes, hi, it's Mickey. Mark, I was just on a more local level, I was wondering what the status is of the chiller and the students being able to go back to their rooms in main building and all that kind of stuff.
And Mickey, thank you so much for reminding me to mention that. The air conditioner came on Monday. Now it's on, and we have been working in and out of the building this week. There's still multiple inspections and approvals that have to take place, but they do not feel as if there will be any problem with students and staff being able to be in main building on August the 8th. So that's our third chiller replacement using the ESSER funds that we received, those federal funds, which were COVID expenditure funds. So we've done a beautiful job with, and if you come to NCSD, Lord, bring a coat, because the library is like an ice box, and they're still working to manipulate to try to get the temperature just right. Northcott, which is the building at the beside of the big gym with the maintenance bays in it, it's running beautifully and is very comfortable. And so far this week, as Tanya and I and others have been in the building, main building has been comfortable as well. In fact, I might even turn it down one click, but we're excited. We're excited that we are going to be able to return the students and staff members back to normal operations.
Wonderful.
Good. And relating back to DPI and transition, I do want to inform the board that in July, I did have a meeting and discussion with Representative Blackwell, and we did talk about the last report that our board is due to give, and it was supposed to be due on July 1st. Senate Bill 90 had it postponed, so myself and the chair at Eastern wrote a letter to the JLOC committee asking for a postponement of that report, and we asked that it be postponed. This was on the advice of Representative Blackwell, to 30 days after Senate Bill 90 is passed. So it gives us time to figure out what we want to do in our final report. So we do have a report left to give, but we need to have some things to report before we write it. Okay. Anything else in new business that anybody has? Anything? Okay. Do I have a motion for us to move into, oh, sorry, Chris.
No, just anticipating your motion, but we do, for the public, have to give the statutory site. So the statutory side for, oh, you have it. I'll be quiet.
Hey, Mickey,
Yes.
because I'm 50, I need to step away for just a minute. Can we do that before we go into closed session, please? That'd be all right. Can we
I
take
actually did have,
can we take 2 minutes? Just 2 minutes, please.
Madam Chair, you can declare a 5-minute recess if you'd like to.
Okay, we will have a 5-minute recess.
Yes. Thank you.
How you been?
Me.
That good, huh? Oh,
Hey, Sandy, did you did you send that press release to for Sam to about the foundation?
I haven't seen it. Did you send it to me?
Yeah, I think so.
When did you send it? Has it
Has
been
it
a
been?
long time?
No, it's all right. We'll talk about it later.
Okay. Wallace, do you have your hand up? Okay. Okay, did we all get back? Okay, Wallace has his hand up.
Yes, thank you. This is Wallace. There's one item that I thought I would just raise before we go into closed session, since we've got Chris, and I don't know if we'll have Chris at the next Business and Finance Committee meeting that I mentioned earlier. We would want to call one. There were a couple of follow-ups coming out of the last Business and Finance Committee meeting that were opportunities, one of which would really kind of depend on the legislation. But another one was having to do with establishment of bank accounts where we could deposit and manage funds from our own generated on campus, like at sporting events and that sort of thing. And I guess a question that I've got is there any reason we can't just, as a board, approve, hey, establishment of accounts and changing how we're doing that, or that there needs to be more legislative, something beyond our control before we move forward with something like that? Just thought I'd ask now because we may not have you at that committee meeting.
Sure, and the direct answer is I don't know. Still being a state agency and the ability to establish a bank account outside of the state treasurer and approval by the state treasurer, I would think that would be something that Mr. Patrick could ask about, the ability to establish a local bank account. I understand exactly what you're saying, and it makes a lot of sense. I just don't know what the mechanics of that are for a state agency.
And this is Mark, and I can answer that the only thing that we are allowed to have currently under OSBM is a deposit only account, because it has to generate back to where the funds are coming in, which would be DPI. Once the transition is complete and those funds are funneling through DPI but being given to us, at that time I believe that we would follow the same processes that DPI does. But I doubt seriously with the current setup that we would be, I'm afraid it would be against policy. But that would be an OSBM question.
Okay. Well, maybe we can take that up in the committee meeting. I don't want to take up too much of the board's time on it, but that's helpful. Thank you.
Good question. Okay. Now, do I have a motion for us to go to closed session? Mickey?
Yes, this is Mickey. I move that we go to closed session to prevent disclosure of sensitive information under 143.318.11.5 of the North Carolina General Statutes for the purpose of personnel discussion.
We get that right, Chris?
Sorry, I had my microphone off. Yes, this is Chris. Yes.
Okay.
Yay.
Do I have a second? I think Tammy did that.
This is Tammy. Yes, I second.
Okay. All in favor, raise your hand. Okay. And Aaron, if you could turn over the link to Chris's office, we will go to closed session.
So the breakout room is open and ready to go. Do I need to pull y'all in? Because again, there is no way that I can be in there without you seeing my name.
Yes, and my understanding just procedurally is that you would pull us in and then make me the moderator or the presenter. Is that right?
Well, my account maintains host, but I do not join the breakout room.
Gotcha. So you'll pull us in, but you won't be there.
Yes, I pull you in, and me and Tanya will not be in there. We will stay right here in the main meeting room, and you will see, just like this meeting, everybody's name who is in the room. And if there's any concerns, you can leave, or we can adjust whatever we need to.
Okay, but you'll just be pulling the board members, Mr. Patrick and myself into the room.
Yes, as well as the interpreter.
Right, yes,
And
absolutely.
the closed
Gotcha.
session is not recorded.
Okay. There's an interpreter.
Oh, we lost Jimmy.
And we're gonna switch interpreters. Switch interpreters.
Aaron, this is Mark. Can you see where Jimmy is?
He left the meeting altogether.
Oh no.
There he is. He's back.
Oh, I started to say he needs to come back.
It's Tammy saying it does say Jimmy's there.
Yep, he just came back in.
He needs to connect to video.
Yep, it's loading him in.
Yay, Jimmy's back.
Okay. We're back in open session. I'm going to ask for a motion for the recommendation for the teachers' contracts. Mickey,
I move that we accept the group of teacher contracts that have been presented to us by Mark.
okay. Do we have a second? Jimmy,
And Jimmy, second.
okay. All in favor of approving those contracts, please make it known by raising your hand. Okay, and there you got a big lump of teachers, Mark. I'm
Thank
gonna,
goodness.
yeah, because that was a lot of them.
Whew.
I'm gonna ask for a motion for the director's recommendation for principal, subject to the state HR hiring policy, and the chair will be recusing herself from vote. Have a motion.
This
Wallace,
is Tammy. Oh, Wallace, go ahead. Wallace, go ahead.
So moved.
okay. Do I have a second?
Yeah, this is Tammy. I second it.
Okay. All in favor, please make it known by raising your hand. Okay, and that motion has carried also. Okay, is there anything else we need to do tonight at almost 8 o'clock? Our next meeting is scheduled for August 15th at 5 p.m. It is an in-person meeting for Hoffmeyer Cafeteria. I've already been informed that Jimmy will not be there because he's on vacation, and Tammy is going to be in California. Tammy, do you plan to attend by Zoom?
I do.
Okay.
Yes, I'll be there via Zoom.
Jimmy, do you plan to attend by Zoom?
I
Okay,
do.
good, because we'll need, that will be an action meeting, I think.
And this is Jimmy. If I can only remember to bring my laptop with me, I got to take my laptop with me on my vacation.
Write yourself a note. Okay.
Good point.
If I,
Yes.
Chris, you have anything else?
And Tammy said, I am going to have, I think, Jimmy, you need to just tie a string around your finger so you won't forget.
Okay. Chris, did you have anything else?
I did not, other than to say it's a thrill to be back and be with all of you. Great meeting. I mean that. Great meeting. Great meeting.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So
Mickey,
move.
okay, do I have a second? Any discussion on that? If not, make it known by raising your hand. And good night and thank you all. Appreciate it.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, bye-bye.